Welcome to Level 2. Level 1 was about slow land changes. Level 2 will be on fast land changes. The Earth is always changing. In this level, we will review the Earth's layers and learn about continental drift and the theory of plate tectonics. Did you know that long ago scientists believed that there was only one continent? We're going to find that out in Mission 1. We will also study earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and landslides and find out how these changes have affected Earth's crust. Let's review our big question. How do Earth's resources change? So far we've learned that Earth's resources are land, and it changes over time very slowly. Our key point is Earth's surface is constantly changing. These changes occur either slowly through weathering, erosion, and deposition, or rapidly because of natural disasters like earthquakes and volcanoes. Humans can also change Earth's surface both positively or negatively. By studying Earth's changes in natural resources like minerals, rocks, and soil, humans can determine how to use natural resources to survive and where to build structures used for living. Mission 1 will be on continental drift. Our mission objective is to explain the role of tectonic plates and continental drift in changing Earth's surface. Our challenge questions, which you'll need to have answered prior to moving on to Mission 2, is what was the large mass of continents called? What was its name? What is the definition of continental drift? And it's not an Ice Age movie, although the Ice Age movie has something to do with it. What are tectonic plates? Again, looking for the definition there. And what are the three types of plate boundaries? We're going to begin by watching a very short video on Pangaea.
This is Namibia in southern Africa. Geologist Michael Rampino has just discovered what he's been looking for, a particular kind of rock. He's eager to compare it with another rock he extracted in Argentina, over 6,400 kilometers away.
And the rocks are exactly the same. They're basalts, and the age is 135 million years. Clearly, when these rocks were erupted, as floods of lava traveling hundreds of miles, South America and Africa were together as one supercontinent.
In 1912, a scientist named Alfred Wegener proposed that Earth was once joined together, forming one gigantic supercontinent called Pangaea. About 240 million years ago, Pangaea started to break up. Over millions of years, the continents drifted apart. It took a long time, but eventually the continents reached their present locations. Wegener pointed to supporting evidence in rocks and fossils, and to what seemed to be the remarkable fit of the South American and African coastlines, as if they were once part of the same piece of land. This idea, known as the theory of continental drift, was hotly debated. Although Wegener could show that the continents had shifted position, he couldn't explain why. Decades later, the movement of continents was explained by the theory of plate tectonics. This theory requires an understanding of the composition of our planet. Earth is composed of four basic layers: the crust, the mantle, the liquid outer core, and the solid inner core. The crust is hard and made up of rocks that contain various minerals. It's also relatively thin. Continental crust on land, averages just 30 kilometers thick. Oceanic crust averages just 5 kilometers. Just beneath the crust is the solid uppermost layer of the mantle. Together, the crust and the upper mantle make up the lithosphere. Under the lithosphere is another layer of the mantle, called the asthenosphere, a zone made up of hot, semi-solid material that can soften and flow. The rigid lithosphere is thought to float or move on the slowly flowing asthenosphere. Below the asthenosphere, the mantle is again solid. Earth's liquid outer and solid inner cores are extremely hot, with temperatures ranging between 2,000 and 5,000 degrees Celsius. Over Over the course of Earth's history, the flowing of the asthenosphere has caused the planet's crust to break into about 12 large slabs or plates and several smaller ones. Most plates contain oceanic and continental crust. Plates move relative to one another at speeds of between 2 and 10 centimeters a year. That's about as fast as a human fingernail grows. Plate tectonics helps explain why Earth's surface looks the way it does. It has to do with what happens at the boundaries where plates meet. There are 4 types of plate boundaries. Divergent boundaries, where plates spread away from each other. Convergent boundaries, where plates push toward one another or collide. Transform boundaries, where plates slide past one another. And plate boundary zones, broad belts in which boundaries are not well defined and the effects of plate interaction are unclear. A well-known transform boundary is the San Andreas Fault, which runs almost the entire length of California. Activity along a fault boundary can cause earthquakes. At convergent or colliding boundaries, one plate generally is forced under the other. This is called subduction. Occasionally, plates crumple, and the folded crust is forced upward. The most striking example of this is the formation of the Himalaya. Plate tectonics explains how, but not why, plates move. One possible explanation has to do with temperature changes and gravity. It takes millions of years for newly created crust to cool. As it does, it shrinks and becomes denser. Eventually, gravity pulls the edge of a plate down, causing the entire plate to move slightly. Understanding plate tectonics helps scientists anticipate where plates will move in the future. That's important because it may help geologists forecast potential natural disasters, particularly earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
I hope that video gave you some background knowledge about what we're going to talk about for this mission. Let's get started. Alfred Wegener proposed that all continents were once joined together in a single large land mass he called Pangaea. So today our continents are spread apart, but he proposed many years ago that all the continents were once joined together, and he called it Pangaea. He thought this because he believed they had split apart and the continents had moved gradually over a long period of time to their present positions, a process that became known as continental drift. Here you can see what they believe Pangaea might have looked like. You'll see that there was North America, which is in brown. Northern Europe is kind of that peachy color. Africa and South America are green, and then Australia, India, and Antarctica, they're that brown or the lighter brown color. That's what they think that Pangaea looked like. According to the hypothesis of continental drift, continents have moved slowly to their current locations, and that's because of what they think is where our crust is on top of plate tectonics. Here you can see over time how they think that it went to. Those names that you're seeing on there really aren't important. This is just there for you to see how they think they changed over time. Notice how they were all together at first, but then gradually they spread further apart until they are where they are today. What is the evidence? Why all scientists have to have evidence for a hypothesis or for a conclusion? So what is their evidence for Pangaea and continental drift? Well, really there are two main evidences that they use. That's one of them is continents fit together like a puzzle. There you can see South America and Africa. If you were to put them next to each other like in a puzzle, they fit pretty good next to each other. And then here's also a really important thing, and that is the fossils of plants and animals of the same species are found on different continents. So you might have, and there you see, those are just different names of animals, but those animals are found on multiple different continents, and they theorize that they had to be able to travel very easily from one landmass to another, and they couldn't do that if they were farther apart. So if they were right next to each other, then they could make that traveling, but if not, they couldn't. But since they are on two separate continents now, they believe that they were once very close together. Tectonic plates. The crust and the top of the mantle together are divided into large pieces called plates. The crust and the top of the mantle together are divided into large pieces called plates. These plates are constantly moving, sometimes causing rapid or fast changes to our surface. These plate tectonics float on top of the mantle similar to ice cubes in a bowl of water. So I want you to picture that situation in your mind, visualize it. Picture those ice cubes floating to the top of water, and that's kind of what these tectonic plates do on the top of the mantle. Here you see a picture of the different plates that scientists have found on top of the mantle and underneath Earth's crust. A boundary is the location on Earth's crust where two plates meet. There are three kinds of plate boundaries: divergent, convergent, and transform. And we're going to talk about each of those here very briefly. We're going to first talk about divergent boundaries. Divergent boundaries are where the plates move away from each other. If you look at that diagram, it's showing divergent plate boundaries. They're moving away from each other. Think of divergent, die. If something's going to cause you to die, you're going to move away from it. So divergent are when plates move away from each other because they don't want anything to do with each other because they're going to die. When divergent boundaries split apart, they cause volcanoes. The second is convergent boundaries. Convergent boundaries are where the plates move towards each other. So think of convergent, come. They're coming closer to each other. And when that happens, mountains and trenches are formed. And then finally, we have transform boundaries. Transform boundaries occur when two plates slide past each other, and those usually form earthquakes. So there are three different types. There's divergent. What are those? Think die. They don't want anything to do with each other, so they move away from each other. Then we have convergent boundaries. Those come closer to each other. Convergent, come closer together. And then transform, slide past each other. Let's talk about our summaries. Earth's crust form tectonic plates that are constantly moving and changing Earth's surface. They form things like mountains and trenches. They are responsible, these plate tectonics and their movement, for rapid or fast land changes like volcanoes, earthquakes, and landslides. Those are the three things that we're going to be learning about the rest of this level. Tectonic plates meet at boundaries, and there are three different types of boundaries: divergent, convergent, and transform. Please make sure that you have answered your guided questions, your challenge questions, and be prepared to take the checkpoint that follows this video. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask me. If not, I will see you in Level 2, Mission 2.